when it comes to areas of responsibility. There are a lot of different ways that you can interpret how this can play out in your specific life. And for me, I know that I try to keep it very basic and very simple as far as my approach goes. I know others like to whittle this down as far as they can to get as few as they can possibly get. And areas of responsibility, the things that you're the areas of your life that you're maintaining and the areas that you find you want to work on can differ greatly in how you interpret the titles of those. So I tend to label mine based on the roles that I take on. Some people like to make this a part of the different feelings and the emotional states that they have, or they'll do things like self, health, finances. They'll do some things like that. I prefer to look at just the physical roles and the different states that I have in my life. So if you look at this list here, I keep my areas of responsibility as the folders inside my OmniFocus setup, and those folders maintain the projects within my whole system. And there are a few different folders here that don't fall into the areas of responsibility. We've talked about that in the past, kind of like meta type folders that maintain projects within those. So the group that you see here is the list of areas of responsibility that I do maintain, and I keep these in a specific order, and the reasoning behind that we'll go into in a different video. But the important part here is that I do have these ranked, and sometimes it's a bit controversial as to how I've ranked them, but ultimately I know that for me, I want to start out with the spiritual side, but then I always recommend that you have something that relates to yourself. And the reason for that is because it's very hard to take care of the other areas of your life if you don't have yourself taken care of first. So that's one of the reasons that I do that. But as you go on down the list, you can see husband, father, friend, son, brother, church, house, car, and so on here. It's very basic is the way that I work with those. Now, the value of having these as folders and maintaining your areas of responsibility in this way is that if I open this up, so let's open up all of those folders, what you'll see here is that there are a few folders that have 0 projects underneath of them. And in this particular case, that's partially because I don't have the entire system filled in, but the number that you see here empty is actually a pretty accurate representation of what I'm currently looking at inside my system. I've been focusing more on other areas of responsibility currently than what I should be, so I'm a little bit out of balance. So this currently is an accurate representation of what I'm looking at. And what this tells me is that I'm not focused on the spiritual side of my life. I'm probably not being a very good husband or father right now, so I need to be trying to find ways to work on that. And then if I go down here to woodworking, I don't have any woodworking projects I'm working on, which is okay to a point, but I know that woodworking time is one that helps me personally re-energize. It's a hobby I like to do, but it does have some other benefits. So as I'm looking at this list, I can see that there are some very important areas of my life, specifically ones towards the top of this list, that I'm not working on, and that's a problem. So this would indicate to me that I need to think about, am I appropriately engaged with those specific areas of responsibility? And this is the main reason that I maintain these folders as my areas of responsibility. It's a very quick and easy way to see, am I progressing in these areas? And in some cases, I'm okay with those being empty. Like in the case of woodworking, I'm okay with that being empty right now. But the spiritual husband-father side of things, I'm not okay with that. So as I would be looking at this list, I would know this is something I need to address. Now, the important part here is that when I'm looking at this list, I will look at everything as you see here. And if I collapse that, often what I can do is, I saw that spiritual husband and father, those were empty. And sometimes I'll just close them all off, so I'm just looking at one, and then I'll open up, the husband folder. Obviously, there's nothing there. And then I will create a new project underneath of that and just know that I need to be thinking about, okay, how can I be a better husband to my wife? And that's something that I'll start to put a project together around. Do I need to put together a date? Do I need to write her a love note? You get the idea. Do I need to do something? Yes. What is it? And it's a time for me to say, okay, what is it that I need to do in order to get better and promote that area of responsibility? And I do this primarily during my weekly review. It's not something that I spell out as an item per se in that checklist. It's something that I tend to just notice. So this is an area where I'm a little bit fuzzy. I don't always have all the rules nailed down on it, but whenever I'm going through things, oftentimes I've got all those folders expanded and I'm looking down through them just out of the normal flow of a weekly review. And just at some point in that, when I feel like I'm ready for it, I'll look down through this list and do this particular adjustment process. So it's not something I spell out in detail, but it's just something that I try to be aware of. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is the value of putting those areas of responsibility as folders that maintain your projects is that you can see if you are working on those specific areas, and it gives you the ability to make higher level decisions about where do you want that 20,000 foot view to go? Where do you want that horizon to land? And are you going the right direction in each of those areas that you've assigned to yourself?